we're live. Guess how many viewers we currently have?
17.
0. Yeah, we're not a real strong online presence. More of an in-person group, but yeah. Do you guys want any coffee? Want anything to drink or anything? PHP now. When are you starting to use your group, Kelton? There's 3 of you now, at least. No, you don't want to? You could talk about Angular. What version of Angular are you guys using? Is it 2 plus or is it Angular JS?
I think it's Angular JS.
Oh, that's like version 1. They're on like version 20 now. I remember using Angular 2 like 5 years ago, and it was like, oh yeah, Angular JS is going away. That's interesting. Maybe that's like a Python 2 to 3 type thing.
It might be Angular 10. I'm not sure.
Oh, 10. Okay, that's anything 2 and above is like similar, but the one like the JS to 2 was like the big like switch over. If you guys want, I wanted to make this interactive. And that's what this TV is for. There's going to be quizzes on here. Let me see if I can get this to. Oh, it's all right. They're very low key. If I can get it to show. Someone here. You don't have to download anything, it's just like a web page. You can,
The fact that you like specifically call that out.
Yeah, I like to call things not a virus because it just, you're like, I didn't think it was a virus, but now there's like a question that is it? I'm actually curious. I've only used it like once. I'll just leave that up, actually. Sweet. Okay, that'll be in like 10 minutes or so. Okay, well we can go ahead and get started. Do you guys have a preference? I've got 2 presentations ready to go. We've got a Python one and a Go one.
You're doing both of them?
Yeah, that was stupid. I should have asked David to do one. We were gonna do something else, but then I was like, hey, let's try and do an AI hackathon with this group in Coeur d'Alene in October. So I screwed up our schedule.
Yeah, is that like happening?
It is happening. They have a date set. It's not. What'd you say? That was the announcement. No, I'll announce it more, I guess. Yeah, I'll give you guys more details.
Oh man, well I feel like, because you volunteered to do this because, for the GoLink group, because we've been like,
Oh, it's, no, the Go one, I actually had more fun with the Go one. The Python one was, so, okay, I guess I'll just kind of start. Hey guys, I'm John Riddle, this is Dramatiq, thanks for coming, you've all been here several times. Basically, they're both like new updates coming. So one was an update to the Go standard library, and one is a forthcoming update to the Django standard library, or like first party library. So we'll just start with Go. Much ado about Mxing. What we'll cover, what's Mxing. So Mxing in Go 1.21, limitations of it, and then new stuff in 1.22, and you know, why it's worth taking a look at ServeMux, which is the standard library's HTTP request muxer that previously probably wouldn't want to use, but now you might want to. So, Mxing, I mean, it can mean a lot of things, but in the context of HTTP requests, just matching your HTTP path or URL to your registered patterns. We've probably all seen this, I'm sure, in whatever web framework we've used, but I figured I'd go over it in case we had some. Hello, Brendan.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Do you know what a muxer is?
I do.
Awesome. We're good. we're gonna move on then. You haven't missed much. So in 1.22, or well, in all versions of Go, since whenever they added ServeMux, yeah, it's built in multiplexer. Feature-wise, it has some sanitization stuff, which is nice, but what it doesn't have is very robust pattern matching, which is what we're gonna talk about. So looking at features that 1.21 does have, you can match a fixed path, for example, / contact, or like some staticky URL. You can match a wildcard path, or like a sub router, I think, or subtree is what they call it in their docs, but I changed the terminology to wildcard because it actually, it's more how it works, in my opinion. So like /, if you have the trailing, the key thing here is the trailing /, that'll actually match anything, like / API / and then like splat, it doesn't matter. And then you can do host names, so like example.com. And that's it. That's what you got. Yeah, all right. So make this interactive. What is missing here from what you guys have seen in any other, Mxer or web framework? Method. Perfect. Yeah, what else? Yes. Yes. Dude, that's feature complete right there. That is, what else do you need? Okay, any other thoughts? A regex, that's a good one. Yep. Oh. Yeah. So I guess I'm really focusing here on the route handling. I think you can do middleware in that version, but I kind of stayed away from that side of stuff. Yeah. It's like you can do anything once, or well, that's what my pop would say to you, but it just depends how much you have to do, I guess. Kelton, we heard from you. Got anything? Anything brewing? All right. PHP must not have a lot of features. No, just kidding. So in 1.22, we got features that you probably expected were already there, but they were in fact not there. So method, we had that. Segments, thank you, Brennan. So I did say wildcard. This is, so yeah, that's wrong, because we did have it, but it works a little bit differently now. So it's not entirely wrong. We'll go into that. It's a wildcard segment specifically. And then this one's kind of interesting is in 1.21, I said that if you have the trailing /, it's basically like a wildcard. It matches everything unless you have a more specific thing, which is like if you have / API without the trailing /, it'll match that. But if you don't have that, it'll just well, regardless, it'll match anything, like API / users or whatever you have there. But here it introduces this, like, if you've seen like a regex, you've got the $ and the caret. I assume that's kind of where the $ came from. Maybe not. But you can do like / $, in the braces, and you get like only /. So you're not getting that implicit like match a trailing / and everything past it. So it's kind of, it's weird to me, the way it works a little bit.
Can you inject that $ anywhere?
No. It has to be at the end. And actually that's the same for the wildcard segment selector. So the triple dots, that has to be at the end as well.
That matches like separated by slashes, like a bunch of different things in the URL, and it returns them all to you as like an array of strings.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I'm not sure if it's an array. We could look at that, but it does, yeah, it returns everything, including the /, including like multiple different segments. Okay. So the way the match segment works with like the braces ID, that's going to match anything up into another like /. So these are great questions, and we'll have some quizzes here in just a sec. Brennan, not a virus. We're going to have some quizzes. You don't have to download anything. All of these guys did, so if you, herd mentality, want to hop in on it. hurt his life. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to Mac. Does not have a keyboard shortcut that I found to change to mirroring. So I'm just going to do it manually. Okay, that's way too. Yeah, that actually, I was going to point that out because I thought that was funny. Let me just try and change the resolution here. Oh, that is 1080p. This doesn't feel like 1080p. This feels like... Okay, can you guys see that okay? I can zoom in.
Yep.
So that's just the GitHub repo, which I'll share afterwards. So all the slides are online in this GitHub repo. It's got a GitHub Pages set up. So I'm actually going to go to... Okay, can you see that? Okay. So instead of working on the actual content of the presentation when I started this, weeks ago, not last night, I decided I wanted like code samples, and instead of just using something like Go Playground, I was like, I bet I saw this article about Go WASM, and I could probably just easily make something myself. So that's basically what this is. I didn't do like the hard parts, like the WASM stuff is a tool, and then there's like a REPL Go tool that is also like a package I'm using, but I added this beautiful UI around it. So if you click the run guy, this is running all in the browser, and these are just to show what it can do. This is not the point of the presentation, and it's red when it's dead. Okay, so let's see. So here we've got a simple mux. Forever and ever until they go to Go 2 dot something, and then
promised there will never be any Go 2.
Oh, well then, yep, forever and ever. Yeah, so this is a really simple example. We're just, if we run this, we're just making a request to / get, nothing crazy.
But hold on.
Oh yeah.
So you said this is not the point of your talk also, but very intriguing. You said that this is all running in the browser in WASM, right?
Yes.
So when you click that run button, it spun up a web server and made a request to itself inside of WASM, inside of your browser.
Well, so yes, it's using HTTP test. So there's some fakeness going on there. I don't know exactly what it's doing under the hood, but I can show you. As a fun aside, I can drill into this a little bit, because this is actually, I had a lot of fun with this.
I just like WASM stuff. It's really cool. There's some interesting like Postgres ports to WASM where people are running Postgres in their browser.
Yeah.
I know you shouldn't do this, but
I didn't go too crazy. I mean, my Go mod is literally one thing, and this is just the, like in many languages you can do like exec and just pass an arbitrary string. Go, I don't think it has that built in, but this library is like a version of that. So it's really, there's not too much going on. I've got a main.go, which gets compiled into my WASM. Very strong warning. I mean, this actually just runs in the browser, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you were to like add this to your server or something, maybe it'll do some damage. And then I'm using this Yagi package to just take in an arbitrary code string, run it using this eval, and then puke it back out to the browser, just giving the browser the standard out and standard in. So this is sort of the wrapper around the Go function that is like the interop to the JavaScript layer.
I mean, it's interesting because that HTTP test that you put in there, that's some stuff that my company currently does in production.
You guys do HTTP test in WASM in production?
Not in WASM.
Oh.
But like we have a proxy that exists between two separate servers, and we use the HTTP test request reporter to record what request is coming in and ship it off to the next thing and return the responses coming back. Because one thing that's really interesting about the handlers is you pass in a to all of your HTTP handlers, but you can't intercept a writer. You can only write to it. So you use the HTTP request recorder to intercept what is coming back on the writer and manipulate it before sending it back to the original.
Oh, I
So
see.
you can, like, replay the request as you're sending it back. That's why it stood out when you brought it up there. I was like, we do real stuff with that on real HTTP servers. So
I don't like your emphasis on real here because it's implying that this isn't real. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. This is not real. This is silly. That's interesting. That's interesting that you guys use what I
the request recorder.
like a test. Yeah.
I
What?
spent a week trying to get rid of it, and I could not.
Huh.
So I spent a month getting rid of the dependency.
And it's just because your incoming request, they're handing you, because you couldn't like do like a T, you couldn't tee off the input or output.
No, it's because we changed the request. We rewrite it, and so we muck with it before we send it off to the next thing. And you can't do that with the writer because you don't get to see what goes in or comes out of it. Yeah, and so with the request recorder, it writes it into like a request buffer that you can then muck around with before you send it off.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah. So that
Interesting.
drove me nuts. And so yeah, we just spent like, I don't know, a month of two engineers' time to get rid of the part that drove me nuts about that because we couldn't get rid of that thing itself.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, the code here is really not like, I mean, I've got a make file to build the WASM, and I'm not using any, there's no front-end framework going on here. It's all just JavaScript.
Can you go to your make file again real quick? There
Yeah.
was one thing I saw in there that's kind of interesting.
I'm not like, make is not the first thing I often reach for, so if there's a bug here, then
No, you use it the same way as I do. It's a script runner.
there's a tool called Just that I actually prefer, but make is like built into everything, so it's easier.
I started using Just, but this one right here, it's the WASM exec JavaScript. It's downloading the Go binary as WASM and then compiling and executing it against that binary.
So this just downloads it, and then it gets added as like a dependency to the build command. Where does this?
This is totally an aside, but I'm very interested.
So I'm not like so there's like an article that kind of walked me through the WASM bit, so I'm not an expert.
You just have to have that WASM exec.
I'm assuming that this,
That's the glue between yeah, it's probably like the linear memory portion of it.
yeah.
If you don't have the right WASM exec.js that matches the Go version you compiled it with, then it freaks out or something like that. I haven't done much with it other than
Yeah.
add CLI in the browser, and that was hell.
Also sounds like a bad idea.
Yes. Gave up. But
Interesting.
I did get it working, and it's basically you just have to have the right. The exec.js is how it maps into the compiled Go.
Yeah.
That's where you get like the JS function back in the other, like using make, whatever you were calling that.
Oh, this or
No,
in the main.
Go, the JS func of that won't work if you don't have the right, as I understand it. But you know more about this than I do, so.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't-
There's a secret there.
Yagi. Does it tell you right here?
Is that like the standard?
Provides a complete Go interpreter.
It's interesting because Go is not
Interpreted language. Yeah. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed it and said, "This will work." Okay, I'm gonna get us. Okay, little. No, we can talk more. Let's go forward slightly. Okay, and actually, let me pull up my. Actually, here I'll use my trackball or my. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, we're not quite there yet, but I'll just pull it up.
So is that really how you define it? A string like that, post, and then
Yeah, I don't, maybe people have more elegant patterns, but like, so this is like, say this is what I wanted for my, like, my router, then, oh wait, this isn't even, there was one that had way more. It's like, you're doing switches on the method, and then if you're doing like, Yeah, this is the old one. This is the crappy way. This is the sad boy way. Go use a different web framework library. I thought there was more samples here. Maybe it's in the next one. Oh yes, here we go. So this is if you wanted to add all of that, and this isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but just to really show how horrible it is. It's like you've got switches, and then so we've got here. If we want to have like a segment, well, it doesn't support segments, so we've got to like cut our strings up and do all sorts of kind of janky stuff to try and build it. If I run this, yeah, it just, there's nothing too super interesting going on. Just at the very end of defining all the requests, I just make a request against each of the URLs that I wanted, filling in the segments with like an actual value, and then just print out the route that it matched. So you can see here like API widgets, slug parts 1 update, like only matched up to API widgets. And then if we go into API widgets, it's probably doing more. Maybe that one I didn't totally finish. Or like, let's see. So one thing that was kind of difficult was I couldn't figure out, I didn't want to spend the time to have 2 different Go like binaries for the same web project. So this is still using 1.22, so I wonder if it's not actually, if it's sneakily using some 1.22 stuff. It shouldn't be, but we'll move forward to 1.22. So here's the same routes, and then defined, and they should look a little bit better, hopefully. Let me zoom in. So you'll notice this is getting duplicated. That's just because this isn't the best way to write it, but I just wanted to be able to print stuff out. But now I can do I can do get slash and then the $sign to match only this. I can do individual handlers for each of my methods, like you would probably expect. I've got the slugs. If I go to this handler, which is all just, everything is just defined in the same file, you can see that where is it? This is the money thing. So this is something that was introduced in 1.22 is this path value thing. So it's basically like looking up the name of your segment, and then it gives you the value. So if I run this, we should see for like this one, it'll print out slug and then like the value of slug, which in this case, in my actual request, I just pass it the string slug, so it's not super interesting. Or like here I pass, where it wants an ID, I pass it like an actual ID. So then if we scroll down to this request, we can see that it's actually matching a much more specific route. And then we're able to, instead of doing like string manipulation and cutting stuff up on like forward slashes, we can just go in and get all of the values right from the request object for the segments. I didn't include an example of the wildcard. Yeah, here, I also haven't actually edited anything, so you don't even know if this works necessarily. Let's do, the one thing is I don't have any sort of like autocomplete here, not even syntax highlighting. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do slug, Brennan. Oh, I see. So if you don't do that?
Or what if you pass something else? I mean, like, what happens? Have you tried to, like...
So, I mean, I could theoretically do something like...
Well, no, just what if you pass a non...
Oh, I see.
Verb? It wasn't a string. Like,
Seth.
Yeah, what if you do that?
That's my favorite verb. So it'll probably... I don't think it'll even run. don't tab. I didn't spend the time to get tab to not like actually tab. So I'm like manually adding spaces. I'll just follow whatever I was doing here last night. Okay. So if we run that.
That makes me think it's not actually running your code.
Oh, I haven't ran it yet.
Oh, I thought I said you clicked run.
No. Ready? Pew. Oh, what?
Did you run it now?
Oh, let me make a request.
But it hasn't failed.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. What?
Oh my gosh.
What?
Seth being an HTTP verb? Yeah.
What does that even mean?
I mean,
It depends on how you define the first argument to handle func. If it's supposed to be,
I don't know, but they're still working on like HTTP 3 standard, right? Maybe there will be a Seth.
I'm actually.
What if we do like Seth _ 1 2 3? Let's just get weird with it.
See, this is where.
This is odd. Okay, that okay. Seth with brackets is not a verb, but
It's an invalid method.
So that part, that makes sense, but maybe the HTTP spec just doesn't
maybe they're just
define specific methods. It's just these are the ones we use. Well, that's not where you're gonna find the intricacies of it. It's gonna be like
from Google. Oh,
read like
ChatGPT. That's
I mean, this just seems so not right.
well, so at the very end, I'll compare how this works with some other ones. And I think based on what I'm hearing from you, you're not going to be happy because, well, actually no, that's not true because a lot of them have like a function that you just call like .get, or you can pass. Yeah.
But I mean, this just seems so. See, it's the end, right? You introduce generics in the language, and then they do crap like this.
And then you have
Like
Seth.
Go is it's on the down later. It's on the down later.
Yeah, this is really. I love that this worked. That's great.
I just seriously the hand. I mean, I guess okay, yeah, fine. Your handle func, like, is now backwards compatible.
So I think one thing you started to ask, and then we learned that Seth is a verb.
Yeah, what is WC right there?
So this is, you still have to give it an identifier. I don't think you can do like just the ... dots, though. I mean,
I just wanna know what the value of it is. Like if you were to print it.
this. Let's run it. So it's not printing.
Does your regular expression not match ...
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were making a joke.
Route. What's your route?
Oh, here, let me just. Oh yeah, I think you're right. Let's do regexes on the fly.
Just put, you have to do // dot, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. This is some live coding. Nothing. So that's because it.
Oh, it's matching ...
Yeah. So you. Yeah. That's okay. We can do this. Strings. What is it? I know cut prefix or something.
It wouldn't be the prefix though.
Yeah, the postfix. Is that a thing?
Suffix?
Suffix.
I can't get on these right now, so I don't know how to.
All right. I need my IDE here to.
So you just want the prefix?
So I just want to. Yeah, I want to.
Are you trying to get something else?
I just want to remove the trailing ... dots.
Just do trim.
Can you pass trim your trimmy value?
It's the string and then what you want to trim.
Okay, let's try this.
So string.
Hey, booyah. Hello world.
So it doesn't, it's not like a slice, it's just the whole thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like here.
Yeah, if you wanted.
Parse it yourself now.
Well, if you wanted the individual segments, you would just define the route to.
How many there were.
Yeah, you're on your own there. Yeah, you probably.
I'm gonna have to split that on slashes all my own.
Yeah.
I mean, I see how this is better than 1.21. I don't see how this is good.
I had the same initial reaction to it.
Have you used it?
No, but I've gotten used to reading code that is like this,
Hmm.
and it doesn't bother me as much anymore.
Let's roll to the challenges. Let me do a hard refresh. Okay. So, y'all got your apps? Why is one of these green? Am I hovering over it?
Figured out.
Is that the answer? It shouldn't be showing you.
Mine says get lost.
So I haven't really used this thing very much. Much ado about it.
Wi-Fi is not awesome today.
Yeah, our Wi-Fi at like 5 o'clock took a huge crap. So if it's not working, we'll just continue on.
There you go. Just turn the Wi-Fi off. My computer Wi-Fi is not working. Weird.
I'm assuming since the answer is highlighted on
No, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to be highlighted. Oh, dude, my computer.
I coded.
Okay. Well, this computer's working. Actually, I'm not even using any internet here. It's all either in browser or local. This is very unfortunate. Let me control this from my phone. I want you guys to have the. Oh, there we go. We got it. Okay.
100%.
Okay, that's disappointing. Everyone close your eyes for a second while we go to the next challenge. Come on.
My phone reloaded. Your TV did not.
Yeah, my computer's on the struggle bus. Maybe I'll connect my phone to my computer to my phone. Did anything pop up? No. Yeah, that's.
Not a virus for us. It's just for Joe.
It feels like it's not working. All right, come on, connect my phone.
Hey, there you go, but it's still showing us the answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess the correct one.
So someone did push a fix to this like an hour before this presentation, so I'm wondering if it wasn't tested.
I deployed to production last Friday. It didn't go well.
Oh. This is really unfortunate.
Took that sucker down. Well, I think it shows the question and the possibilities.
Yeah, no.
All right, I'm gonna spend like
Yep.
2 more seconds debugging this, and then I'm gonna give up. Can I?
Oh, your WebSocket was closed. You need to open that WebSocket back up.
I don't care about the WebSocket. I'm assuming there's a style somewhere that's making this look different. Can I just turn it off? This is really hard.
Background green.
Okay, guys, it's not that one.
Now when I go to the next screen, it's probably just gonna go back. All right, let's try this one more time. That's okay. I can always just. So, what did you guys guess for challenge 2? .wc. Interesting. Okay. Good job. You're all professionals. Okay. Challenge 3. Here's the code. I might just disconnect here so you guys can't cheat.
So
And
it's asking which handler will get called.
yes. Yes.
I didn't get any. Did you go to the next screen yet?
I did now.
Hey, this is the TV I have at home.
I literally set this up like 30 minutes ago. Well, it's been over 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think about how the old matchers work. I don't know which one is longer.
Well, this is a new matcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Longer. Because I think they did change it a little bit, actually, the way
Yeah.
it handles the routes.
Because the old one would match, it was the longest route.
Right.
Whichever route was the longest that matched it is what it would do.
Yeah.
So I was like, is ID or WC dot.
Okay, maybe it worked. Maybe my in-browser style fixer worked. Okay, are your guesses in? Oh wait, that's not the right question. This is not working.
We refreshed. And I got it wrong.
I got it wrong too.
Panic! Ha! Who, Here, tell you what, I'm just gonna make this not duplicate screen and I'll just move it back and forth.
Wait, that part I hate. Why did it panic?
Why did it panic, you ask? The same reason I'm panicking that this isn't working.
Because Joe's panicking.
No, this just keeps getting worse. This is not your presentation.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, I know the new handler. The more I'm learning, the less I'm liking.
Okay, there we go. I'll just drag it back and forth.
Would you ever actually use this, or is this like people really stick to one of the more built-out frameworks like Gin? We use Gin forever.
That's what we're
I would not use Gin for anything.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I tend to stay away from like heavier and more just a lightweight rather than just do fucking load.
Yeah, so I guess my main question is there a real use case for this, or has the community really provided the things you would really want to use?
I still think I'd use it.
Really? Use this?
If it was a new project, I would probably still use this.
Well, I don't want to.
You'll end up duplicating large portions of the bits and bobs.
Can we circle back to this? Because I have a slide for this that'll, I think, further the conversation. But
Seth's concerns.
yeah, actually, yeah. I have a table with a list of features, and one of them is Seth as a verb supported? Okay, challenge 4.
Wait, I want to know why the last one
Oh, sorry, that's what I was trying to. Okay, so the last one failed because slash and then splat essentially collides with. So this, I put this in the middle to throw you guys off.
It wouldn't matter where you put it.
My skull. So this, remember, the trailing forward slash is essentially a splat. Yeah. So this and this are the same thing. One just gives you the segment value in the request object.
It's just when you register the handle, it doesn't return an error, it just flat out panics. Is there any way to keep it from doing that? Because the other pattern in almost everywhere else in the standard library is like having it say must. So you must.
So this panicked before the request happened. Is that your?
But it panicked when you registered the handler.
Right. You saying you don't want that? I feel like I would prefer the fail early.
Well, it feels like an anti-pattern. If there's going to be something that's going to blow up in your face,
Oh, I see.
return an error,
Oh.
force you to handle it. There's very few places, well, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, I've run into very few places in the standard library where it just says, and then dies.
Yeah, this is one of them.
You have to wrap it in a panic handler now. And what if you have that?
I assume this is at the very beginning of.
I would not want to handle that panic because I wrote a route wrong. Like if it blows up, then I'll just go and fix it. Like this isn't deployed anywhere. I can't run it.
Yeah, but you almost always have something that's like a handle must or some sort. Well, I guess you're right. That's more of a runtime type.
Like regular expressions, right? You'd want like a must regular expression.
Yeah, there's what else am I thinking?
I also thought must was an anti-pattern.
All right, just so you all see, you all got it wrong. So you know.
Panics are no, I mean.
What are we on? Challenge 4?
It's doesn't, Go doesn't handle very often in
Yeah.
very many places, because that's not.
That's where I try and differentiate, because I will use panics, but I will use panics for signaling a developer error versus like I'll never have a panic in user code. But like if something it can't run without something, like if the application won't start without something, then I'll put panic in. But if there's any way to get it during runtime, yeah, something like that. Like it won't even start.
Could you generate path strings at runtime?
What's that?
Could you generate path strings at runtime?
Potentially, I mean, like,
Yeah.
dynamically mounting a router in, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you do it.
I mean, it's right there. That one's
Well,
You could use a request to add a new request handler to your.
Well, no, I mean, we do that in certain parts of our, when we have to mount, because the way we handle auth Z and stuff like that, we have to mount a route during runtime into part of our existing.
Interesting.
And so.
Is that just like a
the way-
temporary like token callback type or like?
No, it's
Oh.
like if you're enabling something at which,
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's.
Is it still like well defined? You're just kind of turning it on and off.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But, you know, I wouldn't expect in that particular instance to have
A panic.
a panic.
Yeah.
We wrap, I mean, you know, up the chain, we wrap it so that we handle those, but, I don't know.
That's crazy though, because like the normal panic recover happens in like middleware, right? It's part of this. It doesn't handle this.
Yeah,
We got a new challenge up.
That's interesting.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, we do, well, it has to be at the.
you guys voted.
function.
Did you vote? Anyone vote?
If we have it at the highest, function, so there's places we can do start or initialize or whatever. We do have one above that, so I suppose we can still catch it, but it could still be. This is fine.
Answers? Did you guys answer? Oh, where? I did look into using, what is it? VS Code's underlying like open source editor, Moco, no, Mona, what is the word? Starts with an M. It's like the Monaco or something. It's like just the, it's not like the full IDE, it's just like the text editor portion of it, and you can just like grab that and plop it in. But I wasn't using NPM, and I couldn't find a way to easily do it without NPM. I'm just literally like JavaScript. Anyways. Okay, either this thing's frozen or you guys aren't answering.
I'm not answering. I don't, none of these answers? Are you sure one of the right answers is on there?
Panics.
Drops like every
Now you're just gonna
20
panic
seconds.
for everything.
Yeah, it's, yeah. Are we?
That $sign we curly brace.
That was the syntax.
Oh.
I was wondering about.
That was not intentional. Though, I mean,
I'm interested to see what, if you run it with and without, do you get a different?
okay, let's run it. I don't, it's, this thing's not, okay, let's just run it.
So it matches the ID.
Which is what I would have guessed
Yeah.
that it would have matched, but
But
that
now try the
wasn't
$sign.
one of the options.
Yeah. What was? Was ID matched ID?
It might not. It
No,
might
it's-
load the right questions there.
Yeah, so it's the API v1 ID. That's
No,
what
no.
matches.
No, so the answer is actually,
I didn't see a match on there for that.
the answer is none of the above, which was hopefully an option. Did you see that? Okay. There's a none of the above option.
Which is in the middle of the questions.
Yeah. The old like rigmarole on your Scantron or whatever. Yeah, I was trying to be very cheeky when I did this, so
Got it.
just keep that in mind. We've got two more, I think. Sometimes this doesn't refresh properly. Okay, this is where ChatGPT started helping me. I can just barely. Can you guys see that? Oh, and I'll start the new question. just got like a Jeopardy timer going.
AI is always the answer, is obviously the answer.
It tells me percentage, but it doesn't tell me raw answers. So oh, is it not letting you scroll down?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
It does. It. So, courtesy of me making this thing, we had a new bug submitted to this backlog. I think I'm using this for not really what it's typically used for currently. Okay, answers in. I think so. How did we get? Someone answered twice.
Yes.
Okay, because the percentages don't add up to. Okay.
So what happened?
Panic. Again with the panic. Ah, this guy. So let's zoom in on. So, products, category, ID details, collides with ID reviews. So, let's see. I think it was these two collide because it doesn't know, did you mean a slug or did you mean the absolute value? These look basically the same to me. I don't know.
Those two look like very valid routes to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. Grab chi or chai. Okay, last one.
But you run into that with, have you ever used Julian, the HTTP router Julian Schmidt?
Yeah, except that you can say the ID is only numbers.
Yeah, but you run into it.
Man.
If you have a variable and you try to add strings to it off the board, it parses it.
Okay, so far these have all just been, oh my gosh, there's too much going on here.
Couldn't you say that ID is only numbers and the category is only letters? With the Julian router.
Okay.
It seems like it makes sense.
The curveball on this one is we now have things other than just get. So I'm sure that'll really throw you guys.
I don't see a set.
A set, yeah, no set.
That's why I'm not thrown. I'll still get it. I'm guessing it's a panic throw.
Oh, I read this. This one's silly. Okay. So if we run it, it is indeed the one of the three answers. Oh, you guys all put panic, or who?
I'm about to put delete.
Oh, yeah. The silly thing here was you didn't know which delete it was. That was again just me being silly. Oh, and I lied. There's one more.
Whoa, you got a beta in there?
Oh yeah, this was. Oh, I didn't actually define. Oh, so this one there's no question. There's just silliness, and I just wanted to show you guys that I think this will actually compile. Well, it's not actually. So I didn't actually write anything here. Let me just do get. We'll do that. So it works. So you can put all sorts of crap in here. I don't know if this is specific to Mux router, but I asked ChatGPT to give me, I asked it, do you know what code golf is? And it said yes. And I said, give me routes that are like code golf, where it's just really terse and confusing. It makes no sense. And I just wanted to see if it would work. And it did. So if you guys wanted to use some what I think are Chinese characters in your routes, it is supported. So, and that is the end of our challenges, which is not refreshing. Okay, Submarine. Okay. That was the goal. Keep it weird. Keep Portland weird or something. All right. Examples over. ServeMux versus the other guys. I don't know if any of you saw the trailer for the new Minecraft movie, but this felt very timely to me. This was homemade by me. I went to this trailer that dropped a couple days ago, and people were like, "Why does this Minecraft movie look so weird?" Yep. That's all. So this is a lot to look at. It took me a little while to make this, and it's likely not perfect, but I tried my best. The goal here is to show common features related to the routing and Mxing specifically. So you can see they almost all do basic, like just a fixed path like /hello. They all do a method as long as you're using 1.22 plus with Go. They all do a segment, though the syntax does vary. Seth, this should make you happy. You can see that 3 of the 4 offer .get or .post, so you don't have to do strings. Gorilla Mux might offer it too, but I didn't see it. They all have some sort of wildcard. Most of them just use a splat for it.
But I mean, it's still, even with Gorilla, right, it's still defining the method versus string parsing, which is,
Yeah, that's good. And I was just trying to make it terse to fit into this. I believe the standard library does define like HTTP method get.
Yeah.
So you could use that, and that's a string value, but you could use that.
Yeah. Wouldn't you have to, could you just use that directly? Because it's a type of string, would you have to use like.
Oh, would you have to like.
Because you have to calculate.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think you could just stick that in your.
You have to wrap it in a sprint F or something. Yeah, that's a good point. A couple of them offer domain. This is honestly not something I've done much of in terms of having multiple different domains in the same router. So I don't know how often people are doing that, but it's there. Someone mentioned regexes at the beginning. Only 2 of them, from what I saw, offer that feature. All of them but the standard library offer like a subrouter where you can kind of like nest your routers. I mean, that's pretty standard, I would say. Only 2 had naming your routes or URLs. I think when you're doing like web development, like that's something that's in Django. It's nice to do that. And then I just kind of wanted to add a few features. So a couple of these are like a framework, and I just honed in on the specific like Mxing part, but they offer a bunch of other stuff. Some of them, like ServeMux and Gorilla Mux primarily, are really just concerned with like the routing stuff. And then we didn't talk about this much, but the precedence, Brendan, I think you kind of mentioned this. So in 1.21 and below, the order in which it matches the routes is just longest route wins. It changed a bit in 1.22 where it's most specific route wins. And there's kind of like, in the docs they explain like, if 2 routes, one has a method and one doesn't, that wins, but they're the same. Or if one has a domain and one doesn't, that wins. And then there's some logic that's pretty makes sense intuitively in terms of like, if you have like /API /users, that's gonna beat out like /API like wildcard, because it's more specific. So.
I can't believe that made it, because that whole like you've got to memorize the magics of how it parses a string in order to understand what's gonna, like, that to me.
Yeah.
Just seems not okay in so many ways.
Yeah.
Especially like the method versus not method, right? If
Yeah.
the string starts with something that it recognizes as a method, then all of a sudden it's more specific than if you had one that wasn't. I don't know.
Does it bother you that the HTTP specification method is just
Yeah.
the homepage.
Yeah.
So it's a 404? You're like, I'm not even really sure what to do there. It's like the method part of it, I'm dissuaded a little bit from my initial standing, but not for the reasons that we were talking about.
Because it has Ceph.
I actually enjoy that. But me and HTTP method Seth are gonna make some real interesting waves. in the
Yeah.
community.
That reminds me of the it's like 418 response code. It's like,
I'm a teapot.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's another one, I
I
think.
still use that one. That one's in.
I've never used it, but last not feature, but just something that I thought was kind of interesting and I'd ran into with actually Chai specifically was the nature of the way they do like their route matching. So basically all of them use a radix tree or like a trie data structure. One of them, Mux, uses a list, and I think that actually makes it a little bit more flexible. But obviously the other packages are all very popular, so it's not really to their detriment. Yeah, the interesting. I actually had a PR up against Chi that I don't think he's ever gonna merge. He reviewed it, asked for some changes. I updated it, and then it's like, it was basically I was working on a project where we needed to know the route pattern that we were matching before we actually handled the route, like in some middleware, so we could yeet it off to OpenTelemetry and do that before we handled it in case, like, you know, we got the request, started to process it, and then like someone pulled the cord or something like that. So that was like they had very specific requirements around how they wanted it handled. And with Chi, it was like, you know, we found a way to do it. I don't remember if we forked it or if we just did handle it a little bit more downstream, but that was like frustrating, but solvable. But he wouldn't let me merge. He wouldn't merge my PR. So, there was a function there that would tell you, does this URL match a route? It just returned a bool though, and I was like, well, I want to know what it's matching. And yeah, anyways, that's my story. There's still a PR out there. If you go look at Chi and search for Joe Riddles as the author, it's there, unloved and abandoned. Okay, that's. Yeah. Closed, like unmerged. Yeah. I feel like we've had some good discussion already. Are there questions or maybe concerns? Yeah.
So, I guess just a general comment, maybe a question for other people who have done a Go routing library. Chai or Chi.
I always pronounce it cheap.
They have a pull request on there where someone actually asks them to explain it, and it's whatever the like chakra thing is.
I thought that was Chi.
Chi.
Like your Chi.
Yeah, because it's like Zen. The Zen of routing is Chi. They use the standard HTTP handler, right? And so you could very easily switch from standard routing into Chi.
Yes. I had that. I didn't mention it. It was like compatible with all the rest of the standard library middlewares.
But I'm not sure how many people actually care about that much. Because like, I wouldn't use Jin. Jin's way too big. But I like Echo quite a bit. It does not use the standard handle request or request handler. It has its own Echo context that it puts in there instead of a regular context, but it gives you all these things like returning stuff as JSON is just built into it, and just like a bunch of other functions that you would expect to have a little bit of help with and not want to write every time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm using Echo for a project that I'm working on right now.
Echo's a weird one.
Yeah.
I like Echo, and when you go and look at the company that created Echo, there was like this whole ecosystem that evaporated, and only Echo is left.
Oh, weird.
Yes. So Echo's great.
Like ship's going down. Throw Echo. Save Echo.
Echo's the one. Keep it the life graph.
I don't know, the whole compatibility within that HTTP, I find writing middleware and how all of that wraps to just be a huge, like too much of a cognitive load when I'm going in there and like, oh, it's compatible, you can just return this function as long as your function returns that back. And it's just like, so I'm fine with not without the compatibility, but I hate especially because a lot of the stuff that I end up doing with it is very like, you know, look, I don't want to import any of that weight, so I have the HTTP router. I use that all up until the current thing that I'm working on, and I'll use G.
Yeah.
And she has some things that are like, I mean, it was always the like even the JSON return, right? Like it's easy to write some functions that will do that, and yeah, you have to write them, and you have to include them. But I was always like,
Yeah.
I'll just do it, and it was fast, it's lightweight. It was like, I don't know, I really liked that router. She
Yeah.
actually isn't that heavy duty though; it's very lightweight as well. So I
Yeah.
don't know that I can bring myself. I haven't used Echo.
You should look at Echo just
Yeah.
just to look at it, because it really is like a baby step above G. Like middleware is something that's built
Yeah.
into Echo, and it delivers a bunch of built-in middleware stuff that you can opt into essentially. Like they just like have all the core stuff and everything
Yeah.
like that you can just opt into using that middleware.
Yeah.
And a couple of like returns. What was that?
It seemed to have a bunch of like the just the base library had some features, but then there was like several other things that it was sort of opt-in, like just add this, you know, other package that's like first party.
Yeah.
Well, but I guess it's not part of the, you know, it's like, oh, if you want this, just grab it. You know, just grab whatever you want, and we already have it. But if you don't want it, you don't have to use it.
Well, they put a lot of their middleware like in the middleware package, so that if you're just using G, you don't get all of those includes by putting in the middle. But if you want middleware, then you can use the G middleware, and they've got like a bunch of just like logging middleware and a bunch of just like standard type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Martini though, right?
I didn't include. There's probably more.
Well, Martini, because Jeremy.
Yeah, I was just watching his videos.
Yeah,
On embedding NAT server into my
Well,
Go
but
binary.
no, he has this thing called, to me, it's another thing that he wrote, it's called, it's been a day, my brain is dead, but we use it extensively inside our API, and he no longer updates it, and Vanta is like, you have a link vulnerability somewhere in there, and I'm like, oh, and then our SOC compliance people are like, hey, you have a vulnerability here, and like, I know, and it's like in our project, and I can't pull it out. But it does, the thing that he wrote, it injects contexts, and that's why we're using it, because it has context with a bunch of stuff that we need in each one of the requests. So that, if Echo does that, I could see that as being an interesting.
Take a look at it.
Yeah.
I've liked Echo quite a bit. It's like lab stack or something like that is the,
Lapstack. I've heard of that.
well, I think that's where Echo comes from.
Oh, is that
But if you
the
go
company
look
that died, or
If you go, if you go and try and look into lab stack at all, it's just like
the first three things that come up are lipstick, Lambstack, and Lapstacker, a retractable carry system for wheelchairs. How are you guys feeling? It took me a little longer to get through that. I do have some stuff prepared for the Python side. I can try and go through it faster. I don't have the quiz portion, so I think it will go faster. And I didn't spend as much time on this presentation. It also hasn't landed yet, so it's not as... there's that third-party package I'll show that you can go install and use, but it's not like part of the standard Django library. Okay, I'll jump into it. I was thinking maybe we could do like a intermission thing, but I don't know. Do you guys want a quick break or just roll forward? I mean, I guess people...
Sorry, I feel like the Go side of the room has been sucking all the oxygen out of the air, so
whatever. Give me life.
there you go.
Giving life in the air.
Color and commentary.
And anger.
Yes, that's based.
Well, I'll go through it and just kind of, we don't have to spend too long on it, but so dep is like a pep. Sorry, just being stupid. So pep is a Python enhancement proposal. It's basically like the Python standard libraries, like way for, hey, we should add this to the standard library, or we should do this. So Django is big enough that they have their own thing, and they call it Django Enhancement Proposals. And so the 14th one, which is funny that it's a pretty low number given how long it's been around, is background workers, first party kind of background worker stuff. So overview, we'll go over quick quick use cases. We've got all very technical people, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on that. The current state of like, hey, I need to do some background processing, and I have Django. What should I reach for?
Celery.
Yes, that's basically, yeah. That's the whole slide is just a picture of Celery, basically.
Isn't that all there is? I actually haven't.
No,
I
there's
haven't used Django.
yeah, there's a couple more things, but basically, yeah, mostly.
And a rabbit.
Yeah. And then I'll talk about the actual proposal itself. I made a branch to the Spokane Tech Python project that some of us have worked on, and just added Django tasks. And what does it look like to add it? Just a little bit of a spoiler, similar to how I think Seth, you were left wanting more from the standard library. I was left wanting more from the current state of this Django tasks thing, but it's still very new. So, use cases. Anyone want to throw some use cases out? Not sending emails. Yeah, what?
Generating PDFs.
That's good. Yeah, a lot of PDF stuff. I've definitely seen that in background stuff. Slack messages. Yeah, that's.
There's a whole notification use case, which
Yeah.
Recurring payments at the background job? Well, are they recurring? Or are they scheduled ones?
Both.
Okay.
Either.
Recurring payments.
Yeah.
So this is like server-side jobs that are long running the
Yeah.
process.
So yeah, either something that needs to essentially happen in the background outside the HTTP request response cycle. Maybe it's happening like right after a request triggers it. So it's not necessarily long running, but it's long enough that we don't want to do it before we return response. Or the other kind of side of it is not happening in response to any request, but maybe just like periodically, once a month, once a night, whatever. So. Yeah, sending emails or Slacks, whatever. Web scraping, I was just looking at our code base, and we do a lot of web scraping right now in Celery. So actually, just as a quick aside, I don't know if everyone here has seen the website. So SpokaneTech.org, so this is all web scraped, and yeah, that all happens in the background. Nightly jobs, anything that takes a long time. Long time there, I almost put an asterisk. Some room for wiggle around what you define as a long time. Maybe sending an email isn't actually that long and you just want to do it. Maybe not. It's kind of up to you in the application. And then, yeah, anything that needs to run like periodically.
So does Django have a way to attach a job to a request without making the person making the request wait for it? So like if I make a request, you can send me a response and then you can go off and do your own thing while I'm not waiting.
No, that's what this is, essentially. I mean, there's ways to do it, but there's not like a first-party way to do that in Django currently.
Yeah,
Well,
Laravel has something like that where you can assign a job to run at the end of the request, but it's already been sent.
Like
off.
after the responses happen. Yeah, Django doesn't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, David. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing it doesn't have.
Yeah.
Your own kind of hacky thing, like I did one, obviously, using Python writing, which is probably something that's not awesome in production, but for like a very small use case, it works pretty well. But
Yeah.
they've been needing this for a long, long time.
Yeah. So I guess so I actually have a slide on sort of the history around how this came to be, which kind of touches on that. So the state, Celery, Celery, and then I kind of put all the others that I haven't really. I did a talk actually like 2 or 3 years ago on Celery versus Dramatiq when I was using Celery, and I was like, I'm kind of sick of Celery. What's out there? And no one uses Dramatiq that I've seen. No one talks about it. I don't know. Maybe there's one person using it, but RQ is Redis queue. So there's a Python library called like Python RQ, and then there's like a Django wrapper around it. I've never used this. I've never heard of anyone using it, but I don't.
Yeah, I've seen people use it. It's actually pretty popular.
Okay.
If you're like on the whole Redis camp, you want to use like the Redis as like your broker and as your workers. And
Yeah.
everything else works beautifully.
It seemed pretty mature.
Celery really has like a billion different features, but if you want something that will
And Celery can actually use Redis as its message queue as well. This is just like a
But so that's not running in the process that's running. So when you say background workers in Django, there's Celery and then all of these other, like you can call native things. Those are something different because those are like Python-esque that may have ties to or written in Python that have ties into Django, but it's like a completely different job writing framework type of a thing, right?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about that question is that's what I thought this Django tasks thing was it was gonna, like, I don't know, has anyone here used Hangfire? It's like, it's a C# thing, but it's basically like, I don't need a separate worker. I have my like .NET, ASP.NET server running, and I can just like use the database to kind of handle tasks, you know, what needs to run, what's not. But it just runs it all without having a separate worker. And that's what I thought Django tasks was. I don't think that's what it is, which is, I was a little disappointed as I dove in deeper to it preparing this presentation. But yeah, to your point, these are all sort of like things that can work like with Django, but are not like running in the same process necessarily. Okay. So what is DEP 14 specifically? So this proposal, I'm just gonna read. Proposal sets out to provide an interface and base implementation for long-running background tasks in Django. So it's, I guess, emphasis there on interface. So right now in Django, if you do want to, you know, use one of these like RQ, Celery, Dramatiq, they all have their own way of setting it up, right? And as we look at the history a little bit, so the folks at Wagtail, which Wagtail is like WordPress for Django, essentially. It's like a very popular CMS that uses Django under the hood. And they had an RFC where they were like, hey, like we want a better way to be able to like if someone's building on top of our Wagtail CMS and they want to use like whatever background worker they want to use, well, we have to go and like implement like the ability to interop with all these different libraries, and that's, you know, what if there's just like an interface or a base, you know, way to do that? And so that's kind of where this came from. Wasn't even in Django land specifically, it was in Wagtail. And then, so there was an RFC created like 3 years ago. It was added to the roadmap in like February of this year. 2 days later, Carlton Gibson, who's a pretty well-known guy in the Python community, drops a bomb by saying on Mastodon, hi Wagtail, can we make this RFC a proposal for Django? Which I thought was funny. And 3 days later, the same guy at Wagtail creates a PR for the proposal into Django, which was accepted and merged 3 months later. Merged meaning the enhancement proposal was merged and approved, meaning we are going to do this and merge it into the standard library at some point. So there's not actually, from what I could see, a specific roadmap on like Django 6 this is going to get released. Like I don't know when it's coming out, but as part of the DEP there was well here's like our working implementation, and so whatever Django ships with eventually will probably look very similar to that, and that's what I used to actually play around with it. So the benefits, and this is just pulling straight from the DEP, make it simpler for people who are like, hey, I'm new to Django and I want to send an email in the background. How do I do this? Like lowering that, you know, you don't have to go and learn everything about Celery necessarily, which is kind of a lot to learn if you haven't used it before. And then I mentioned this before, allowing third-party libraries like Wagtail to not necessarily have to like, I guess it says some of their computation, but like my understanding was like, hey, we don't want to have to go and like interop with all these different packages that might be out there and are popular, but a lot to add. So when it ships in the current implementation, which is available on PyPI, it has 3 backends. So the immediate backend, this is sort of like a transitionary backend. It's like I'm going to add this library but not actually quite use it. So it actually just runs tasks immediately. It's like I'm using the library, but it's not actually changing the way anything works. There's a dummy backend, which does even less than that. It does nothing. It just stores the tasks in memory, which would be potentially useful for testing. And then the realsies one is the database backend, which is similar to probably like I don't know, whatever WordPress does or some of the other, libraries you guys were mentioning. It uses the database. So it uses the database and the Django ORM to store its tasks. And this is like, if you were going to just use one of the ones it's shipping with, this is like the one that actually does something that you would want it to do.
So I guess I'm trying to realize, so Django still runs through some sort of like pre-unicorn process or something, right? Like Django itself isn't an actual process that's running, it's responding to requests, right?
Yeah, it's like something like what's the word, like your WSGI or ASGI would run it.
Yeah. So how does it pick up tasks that are like stored in the database if Django itself isn't like an actual process that's running?
I'll show you.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'm going to be honest, it was kind of disappointing to me.
Well, guess my expectations were low.
Oh, and I should duplicate my screen.
Hopeful that there's a big green button that you push that makes tasks run.
Yes. Yes, that is. Come on. Bigger. 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 Okay. So here's our Spokane Tech repo, that website I showed you guys. If I go in the source folder with our code, we've got our manage.py file, which is kind of how you do like CLI things with Django. And what was it, DB worker?
Oh.
Yes. DB worker. Run a database background worker.
So you hook this up to a cron or something like that, right?
So, yeah, that's where I was a little let down. It's like, cool, I run this command. I thought you were doing that for me. Like, I thought I could just start my Django run server, or well, you wouldn't use run server in prod, but I thought you were doing this for me.
Yeah.
And come to find out, it's like, okay, cool, there's an interface. So maybe it's easier for like developers of like packages to interop with Django or whatever, but like, it's not what I thought it was. I thought I didn't have to do this, and I was excited, and then I was a little bummed.
So does what it boil down to is just a schema for defining tasks and a place to store them?
It's
if it's just throwing it in Django's ORM and then it has a separate process that just reads that out and then runs it, like how is that?
so I think the real, let's see if it's, do I have a link in the README? In this. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Django. Boom. There we go. So, if we look at the actual, like, proposal, essentially, like, the value that it's providing, my understanding, is you've got this base class, or sort of like an interface, that is like, okay, if I have my own, we had that list of like Celery and Huey and RQ and whatever. Well, I want to go make my own, and I want it to plug in with Django very easily. Then I just have to create a class that inherits from this backend, which, to be fair to Django, is a very common pattern. Like that's how you write like a custom like storage backend. That's how you do a lot of stuff in Django, but that just wasn't how you could do backend stuff. So from that point of view, it's cool, but now I think I'm getting away from your question, Seth. What was your question?
Well, no, is it essentially just, the schema for storing the data in a,
Yeah.
KV or Redis database, whatever, and then hopefully get it out, run those.
Yeah, it's just providing a standardized way of doing that, essentially. So, I mean, it doesn't, yeah, it could be KV Store, Redis, the base implementation they give you is the database, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to use the ORM at all. In fact, most other implementations probably wouldn't. It also gives you this task interface that you have to adhere to, so the Django side knows how to interact with your custom backend runner. So my takeaway is it's a step in the right direction, but I was a little underwhelmed as I looked into it further.
So what does, just for like a corollary or like how to relate to how things currently are, what does it look like to write like a Celery job?
Oh.
Right, like
Oh, sure.
to me it seems like my understanding of like other things is that this is what you would still do, right? You would still have like, you would push something into a Celery queue and it would distribute it to the number of workers that it knows about and like calls a Python function with some serialized data and sends it to a worker, right? Does that worker exist inside of Django right now? If you're writing, it doesn't? It's just regular
worker is
Python
that
stuff?
secondary process that's running specifically not on server.
Right, okay, so this one you would basically, you would have Django running your web server and you would spin up a bunch of other Djangos that are running this web, or the worker command. And that's how it would be listening for
That's probably a joke
Back
question.
end
From what he showed there, it looks like that command that you ran was an equivalent to like running a Celery worker to be.
Right, yeah.
It's run by the manage
So-
command, right? So it's in the Django ecosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Theoretically, you can have multiple processes running on the same server. Hell, you can even have Celery running on the same server that you have your main Django thing going to handle requests.
Are we doing that? We might be.
I've seen people do that. I would recommend you never ever do that.
Yeah.
It's just funny to see this because this is exactly what's been in Laravel for,
Yeah. What? So like you've got like your Django web server, RabbitMQ or Redis,
yeah.
your Celery worker, maybe even a Celery beat worker. So you can also just do that in the worker itself. That's like how Celery knows like when do I run this periodic task. So you have up to like 4 things, and then you could scale some of those out like horizontally with like Django plus Celery or any Python web server plus Celery. I was like, oh, cool, I can like get rid of RabbitMQ, I can get rid of the workers, I can get rid of the beat, like I can just have web server and it can all run. And to, I think kind of the point like you're getting at, you still need, like you can get rid of some of those, but not all of them. Like, so if you're using like that database implementation or database backend, I think you could get it down to just Django web server, Django worker,
Right.
and get like slash your RabbitMQ, probably the beat thing, the Celery beat thing.
I mean, it's essentially just distributed jobs.
Right.
Do you-
That's kind of what, yeah. I mean, but I mean, that's what Celery is, that's what, it's just a way to distribute, okay, so, yeah.
I would even argue that if this was something that can run with, your main web server, it's something that has very, very minimal real use cases.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're like sending an email,
Maybe
like,
any real processes you want to.
Well, but like,
I mean, if it's nothing like CPU intensive, probably not a big deal. But if you're just like sending a network request and just waiting, like you're probably not gonna, you could probably get pretty far. But yeah, if
10,000 of them.
yeah,
Well, so like the benefit that I see from this is that the way that you're describing a Celery worker is that it's not part of Django, right? Like it's something else that you've
Something
written
else you have to
somewhere.
add on and any kind of implementation is another resource.
yeah. So
So
we,
you need another thing running that other process.
Yeah. So like in the Laravel corollary, what I have is I have one Docker image, right? And I say you are a web server, and I spin up the same Docker image, and I say you are a worker, and that worker can fan out
Yeah.
to as many of those as I want. They're all the same image, like I've just told it a different star
Yeah.
command.
we
But I have
you
all
do the same
those
thing.
It's the same
Yeah.
libraries and everything. What's that?
That's the same with Django plus Celery.
So you just change the command.
But you're still using like the Django or ORM and stuff like that inside your Celery worker.
Yeah, well, if you have to like update something in the database and you want to interop with like Django, your Celery worker would still have all of that Django code in it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to use any Django stuff, but like if you're like So let me show you an actual. So like here's where we define a Celery task, and it's just in the same folder that a bunch of Django code is in, and then like the code is querying the database using Django ORM.
Oh wait, this is the new way, right? Or is this?
No, this is the old. This is so they're actually just mixed in right now. So task is the new way. Shared task is the Celery way. I just
Okay.
it's clear as mud, right?
Django is more like a front web, like a framework for writing web pages and like CRMs and those types of. But it sounds like it's, I mean, it's doing distributed like distributed jobs, like task queues. I mean, it's becoming this. And if you have to deploy multiple workers, and then you might have to back by a register. I mean, it's kind of this like. What is more like an application development framework or like an application? I mean, it seems like it's getting quite a bit more.
I would say it's always been pretty heavy. I mean, lots of these things obviously require like additional things like, your Mxing broker and, the workers or whatnot. But yeah, it's simple enough for thinking this many different paradigms. Like I'm a big fan of full stack, but a ton of people just use it for database plus API, and then your typical JavaScript framework of looking for your front ends and things like that.
It's for wizards. Whatever they want to do on the front end of the back end is for wizards.
Yeah. Thoughts.
Very, very magic to me.
Yeah, you could definitely go in and add some endpoints dynamically in Django if you want.
It doesn't exist until you ask for it.
Where are we at?
Okay, so it's just way bigger than it encompasses so much more than I was thinking of it. I was thinking of it as like back in the PHP days of looking at web server and using things.
No, that's what fast APIs are.
Yeah, it's like advertises itself as like the batteries included web framework. So it's like Flask or Fast API is like the chi of Go, and then I think Django's like honestly not even comparable to Echo. It's like more than Echo. It's like Echo plus a bunch of other stuff or something like that.
That sounds like Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Much more comparable to like a Spring Boot or a Rails.
I like their logo.
Because it's as big as Buffalo.
Is that their
Background workers, front end, hot reload, routing, templating, testing. It's got an ORM, which is as soon as I turned away.
Yeah, I know, right? You lost me there.
So here's just the changes I made, and some of these weren't even necessary, but I just wanted to show what it took to add Django tasks. This is just defining a VS Code task for it. So I add it as a dependency in all these files. I add it as an installed app, which is basically just like a vertical slice of functionality in Django land. I had to tweak the SQL, the local SQLite server. That was just, I didn't expect to have to do that, but it threw an error at me. And then just define the default task backend. I'm using the database one. This wasn't necessary, but so let me run it locally.
Just like handle an object and put it in the database, and then you get it back out on the other side, or it's just like serializing something and showing it in there.
In terms of like passing like something to the task.
Yeah, like the database, right? Like there's something in there that it has to get serialized and deserialized.
Yeah. So here I'll show you what that looks like. So the Django admin's like the UI for your database essentially. Tasks, results. So I ran a couple tasks earlier. So this is essentially what the database is storing. So like a GUID, some date times, the status. I don't think the task returned anything, though if it was, it would be stored here. Is that kind of what you were?
So it's just calling a function with specific args and. Is that,
Well, so here, let me show you one that hasn't finished. Okay, so I don't have it running, so this is a change I made locally. So I added this little refresh button. We've got 2 web scrapers that run every night and go and steal stuff from Meetup and Eventbrite and put it on our website. So I use the power of HTMX. Can I get a woot woot from David? Yeah, there we go. So I'll click it. It'll make a post request, and it'll give me back the result ID or the task ID. And then if I go back to the admin, what we should see is a new task. And notice how it's just, I refresh, it's just sitting there new, like, because nothing's running. There's no worker running, is what I mean. So if I go and run my DB worker and crank up verbosity, we should see that it pulls from the default queue, and it runs the task, and it's going to update the database. So very similar to what you would do if you're using what we are doing in this project. We're using Celery and then some Django specific packages that hook up Celery to add a model to our database to store Celery task results. So it looks actually we have those right. So we have another task results that looks very similar. And this is the Celery stuff. So it's actually doing very much the same thing, but not using Celery. So I think the idea is that eventually, I don't know if you get rid of Celery altogether, or more likely there just becomes a Celery Django backend that makes it easier, oh, I want to use the Celery backend, and I use that. Oh, now I want to use this RQ backend, and it's less things I have to go change to swap out my backends, and yeah, less things that people making packages that build on top of the Django framework have to deal with. Yeah. I got really into making tables.
looks very similar to.
Yeah. The only thing I changed was the color scheme very slightly. There's a little bit of a purple hue here.
Down the left column.
Yeah, so the initial V1, whatever lands in Django and what's currently in the Django tasks third-party package, it can do, they can all run something in the background outside the request response cycle. They can all defer a task hey, run this in 10 seconds. And they all have a way of storing the task results. Other than that, the Django one's pretty lacking. It doesn't have a way of doing run this every night. Doesn't have that yet, a cron job type thing. It doesn't have essentially table stakes type stuff for automatic retries, timeouts. Yeah, it's very much a V1 type thing, or maybe even V alpha or whatever. The thing that's interesting that I wasn't really thinking about when I made this is that as it matures and actually gets starts to get used, is these X's might turn into check marks if you're using the Celery supports it. So if you're using a Celery backend that's using the Django tasks interface, you might start to get some of this stuff, but the current implementations and the way the interface is designed leave out a lot of stuff that you would probably want right now. So.
This is kind of an interesting chart to me because those aren't the same thing, right? def0014 is for a definition for a task.
Yeah.
Right, but all of these other things, which can potentially, I would imagine that Celery is going to be one of the first backends that supports this thing built into it, just with how popular Celery is.
Right.
Just like you're saying, those three things are distributed queues essentially, right? And you still have to write a worker somehow. And maybe def14 is just how you write the worker for those three
Yeah, so I was sort of like mixing in. You're totally right. It's sort of like I'm comparing interface to implementations, sort of, which or doesn't quite work. Because there's really there's two things in the depth. There's the current implementations, like the database backend, and then there's like what the interface offers. Currently, the interface doesn't offer any way to configure like automatic retry, and so by extension, the implementation, the default implementations also don't offer any of that. So it's a little bit like apples and oranges, but it's interesting to look at, I thought.
It is, because like you wouldn't imagine to see any of these things in a database backend. Right, like recurring scheduling doesn't make any sense for a database because there isn't really something like polling it, right?
Well, so let me.
I mean, isn't that where you run the worker and it will do that? So at some point, the worker just sits there and then I'm assuming it understands, pulls the database, understands.
Right, but the database only has an instance of a task. It doesn't have a description of, like that's where the recurring would come from, right? You wouldn't actually say, I want you to run this every minute by creating a new task for every minute.
Oh, well.
It doesn't have the description for how to create a task.
This would also come with like a scheduler components where it does that. Where you can set, run every minute or run style thing.
Right. So we have that we have a Celery Django package right now that, so like you can see defined in the database, essentially like our cron. So this is like cron jobs, which link directly to our periodic tasks that we have defined. And these are all like stored in the database currently.
And do you have a real cron job that's calling into Django every minute to see if it needs to run any of these?
No, the cron behavior comes from Celery.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, so it's not like a true cron job,
Okay.
like the cron bash shell command or whatever.
It sounds like it's just going to your point
Say
more.
beats equivalent to like a cron type process.
Right, yeah.
Beats is.
Celery beat. Yeah. Beat's what gives Celery like the cron behavior or like abilities. Yeah, because I think without beat you can't run this task at this frequency or at this specific like. Yeah.
All of the things that we're talking about make me think that your statement of it just assuming those new abilities when other backends are implemented for it sounds a lot more like realistic, right? Like when tasks has a Celery backend, it will get recurring.
Oh, I see. Like it doesn't, like its implementation details to the interface, like it's like, I don't need to know that you're gonna automatically retry, just, if you do that, then you do that, and cool.
Does Celery handle retries or are retries handled somewhere else?
No, Celery handles retries. It doesn't have to. I mean, Celery is very configurable, but
Okay.
I forget what the defaults are. I think by default it does retry, and then you can configure. Actually, I don't know what the default is, but you can set it up very robustly.
Task definition for that?
Yeah, you can also set up Celery to. This is like very specific, but it's an axe late, so you can tell it when do you pull this or acknowledge this. Like, if it fails partway through, do I want it to run again or do I want it to just disappear? That's like usually one of the first things that I go and toggle in Celery is like, don't acknowledge it until it's actually succeeded.
Sounds like a good default.
Yeah, yeah.
People get that wrong.
You're like,
You
just
could do either
acknowledge
way
as soon as
with
I
like,
receive it.
yeah, no,
I'm good.
like
got
acknowledge
this.
when you received it or acknowledge versus in the server it was completely different. And a lot of people are just like, yeah, I got the message. Like, are you sure you really want to hack it right now?
Yeah. One thing I just learned today is that there's a very specific type of error that Celery will ignore your configuration and not retry. It's like an out of memory error. It's like, I'm gonna assume that if you blew up the whole worker and crashed it, that I'm not gonna want to run that again. So it'll like, it tracks that and will not retry if that's like the type of error that happened. Which I was like, I didn't know it did that, so that's interesting. So that's the end of presentation 2.
So are they, I mean, I guess with the kind of seems like right now it's more of an interface, but it's not just an interface because it is more of an interface. They wrote a worker that would pull off tasks and run them, so they have some sort of task runner. It's just not a very full feature one. But I mean,
Right, and I don't know if the current interface provides the capabilities to do some of these things. And I think is your point, like maybe that was intentional and that they're just gonna like let that be an implementation detail. But I imagine that if I was like using this Django task thing, that I would want to be able to configure some of these things without like getting into like the weeds of the implementation. I just want to like, I don't care how you're gonna retry this, just let me just retry it, you know.
it would be, I mean, you would have to define some of the parameters for a lot of those things.
Yeah, actually, so there.
Just define how you're going to indicate. But and then that can get interesting because then what happens if you have a backend that doesn't support some of the things that are defined in the interface already?
Yeah. So I think their plan is that like they're pretty explicit, like we're not going to do all of these things up front, even some things that I would think would be part of like a V1, but like the automatic task retrying, that'll come like down the road. So I think where it's at right now, or whatever shape it lands in, if none of this changes, it won't be very like robust or feature complete, but I assume down the road they'll add more stuff.
Feel that that's kind of tasks is vast. It's like, and you're biting that off?
Yeah. I was gonna say what
Yeah, it does seem like it will start to eat a little bit more into maybe the intricacies of Celery if they're trying to put task retrying, bulk queuing, like cron-based, all that stuff that sounds like it's in the Celery realm right now.
Yeah.
Because the current implementation of it kind of seems like the difficulty of running a task or writing background tasks in Django is probably not writing the task, right?
No.
It's probably running Celery.
I guess I would say yes. I mean, when I see everything on here, it's like, yeah, it looks like a solid problem. Yeah, I think one of the major complaints of not having this type of thing inherently in Django, at least for, I haven't read the whole, like, ever of that part, but your number one use case is that, hey, someone signed up for, they sent an email confirmation. Everyone wants that use case. I would probably argue any other, or most other use cases other than that notification thing should not be done in that same, deploy service image, whatever. Right? Exactly where you want either a Celery or equivalent or serverless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people want it because they don't want to buy like another service from a cloud provider to put on like a Celery worker. They don't understand how to set up a message queue. They just want it to work for that one very specific, lightweight use case. So anyone like who has to do real tasks is absolutely going to set up like a whole bank of workers to do the PDF generation, and then trigger this thing after blah happens, kind of deal.
It does have a pretty large swath of people who are writing just a regular website, right? And needs to send out something that they don't want people to wait for. Like the database worker is going to be perfectly fine for a lot of people. Yeah. Still have to run two things, right? But
I would love to not have to run two things for like for like my hobbyist apps. If I can like yeet one container onto FlyIO or AWS instead of two, love it.
Or you could just use Go, but Go routine handle all of that.
Yeah.
Or you just do whatever it really does with that little ampersand there, Johannes, your startup script.
I just never looked at it.
I think we have a proc file that I have an app out there running that's using something like Overmind to just like I run Overmind and then it just runs like the individual processes and handles it for me, and I'm like, cool, like nobody uses this but me. I don't care if it has more than a 1/4 GB of memory, doesn't matter.
Is that like System D?
What is the proper terminology for it? Process manager?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another one I think's more popular, but this is the one that I used. Foreman. Yeah, I think Foreman might be more popular. I've literally only used this for like hobby crap apps that I'm like, I don't want to spin up more resources. I just want it all to be in one thing and just go. And those were in Python, not Go. So, last thing I was going to say was, I think you mentioned this at the beginning, Brennan, like around like the WSGI, ASCII, like what are the limitations? And I don't know, but an open question for me is, do those, the thing actually running Django, is that an inherent limitation in like running it all in the same process, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like I think, was it Laravel that like after it fires off the response, it runs something? Like, I don't know
It
if,
can extend the request a little bit longer, but it still has all the same downsides of like PHP itself has an execution time limit, right?
Oh.
And so it can't run forever, but it can run something after it sends something back. But if I understand correctly, I think PHP and Python kind of run the same way, where there's a server that sits in front of them that proxies a request back to like your code that exists on the other side of the WSGI or ASCII or whatever it is. But PHP is not running all the time. Like the whole thing boots up when it gets a request. So there's nothing running that it can like do any work. So it has to do this same process where you run your web app, which is actually just like Nginx or something, and then you have your background worker as a separate process.
interesting.
And it looks similar to this. I don't really know what WSGI and ASCII are in relation to Python, but like Django's not running any process, right? It doesn't do anything until it gets a request that comes through that interface. Yeah. And it like boots up the whole Django when it gets the request, right? There's nothing like long running in the background.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I mean, I noticed it like
It-
PHP spins up and it has just a bunch of workers that compile the, so I mean, it kind of has the whole, is it does this? Well, okay, no, I think the last time I ran PHP app was probably back in the 5 to 6 time frame, so.
Yeah.
maybe-
No,
but I
it
thought
has
that
like
was-
you have like fast CGI workers or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that, but those are PHP workers. It is not your code.
Right, no, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you have, and then in the PHP config, you have like a max request timeout, right, that you can kind of play with, and it's like how long that process is going to be. Don't you? I thought for sure you did.
Like if you hit a request into Laravel, it boots up Laravel from the beginning every single time.
But yes, and it's that PHP process that's running, but you can configure how long that runs
Well,
before it just cuts it off. Before the PHP runtime or whatever cuts it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll like reboot that PHP process, but it is rebooting your application with every request that comes into it. There's newer stuff. There's something that's so like Franken PHP. There's like Roadrunner. There's all these other things that kind of they interject themselves into Laravel after the boot process, and so they will keep it running and accept a whole bunch of requests without having to reboot the application. But that is not default behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
There's like off cache and stuff like that that will do like pre-compiling of PHP classes, but yeah, as far as the application itself, it reboots every time.
Right, yeah. But if you have like a long running thing where you could answer the request and then that PHP process, you could have it do something else in the code path after it responded, and you're just set by, you're limited by however long PHP is configured to let a single process run, right? That can run for X number of time, and then it just kills
Yeah,
it.
but by default it's like 30 seconds. Maybe send an email. Yeah.
I have killed the stream for all of our viewers.